Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is John Dodds, and I am the president and COO of Corp, which is now an AEG company. But I'm also the chair of the NAEC Member Services Committee. So I want to welcome everybody to this first town hall discussion in what will become a series of conversations with various leaders within the vertical transportation industry. So these town hall events over the coming year will focus on topics that have been identified by NAEC members as important and significant to their business. These topics will range from immediate needs that you face on a daily basis to the longer objectives related to the long-term sustainability of business. So today's topic is about marketing new products. This industry has been faced with new challenges over the past year, which many also lead to new opportunities for growth. The perspectives of our panelists today may touch on the past year, but their specific challenges may also come from various examples from throughout their career. When we hear about their stories and attempt to view their experience through a wider lens, we can benefit from their experiences when we try to introduce new products and services to our own customers. So before I introduce the panelists, just want to give a few plugs for upcoming NAEC events that you'll want to be a part of. We'll be holding our upcoming Spring Educational Conference live in Tucson, Arizona. It will be held April 18th to the 21st at the Lowe's Ventenia Canyon Resort, where the weather averages from 54 to 82 degrees in April, a welcome relief for many of us who've been in the snow and ice, which quite frankly just seems like forever now, if you've been in the northern part of the country. In addition to the hours of great educational content that's on the schedule, we have a great keynote speaker with James Laughlin, who will present on a more natural way to lead. The social events will be fantastic, such as demonstrated by the resort's Chef Ken Harvey on how to make his famous guacamole and prickly pear margarita recipes. There'll also be local tours available and 2 separate days of golf tournaments throughout the beautiful landscapes of the gorgeous canyon. So please take a moment, register yourself and your staff for this event, because if you're like me, you've been missing seeing all of our industry peers over the past year. We have plenty of safety measures in place with the hotel and the tours that allow us to get together and still be safe. So immediately following the conference will be the Next Gen retreat. It's at the same resort in Tucson on April 22nd and 23rd. This is a 2-day retreat that features a captivating presentation from Andrew Paul, a leadership instructor and chief of staff for the company Echelon Front and a former Navy SEAL officer. In addition to a keynote address from Don Gelestino, also be a presentation on time management from Len Randall, the Escalator Division Senior Director, Mitsubishi Electric US Incorporated. So if you or your staff are interested in the growth opportunities that NextGen offers for emerging leaders, then please consider this retreat in Arizona for the next step of professional growth for those within your organization. As a NextGen alumni, I can attest to the benefits of this group, and it's a group that I highly encourage for any emerging leaders in the industry. So you can get more information on both the Spring Educational Conference and the NextGen Retreat by visiting naec.org. And lastly, still some space available for NAEC supplier members to exhibit at our 2021 Convention and Expo, which will be held live in Atlantic City. The event will be held from September 20th to 23rd at the Atlantic City Convention Center in the backyard of the Northeast Elevator Industry, which we're all familiar with. And you can get more information and sign up to exhibit again at naec.org. So with those out of the way, we'll move into the town hall event. We're going to be going through our panel individually in roughly 15-minute segments. And when all of the panelists have had a chance to speak, we're going to save some time at the end for some questions from the audience attendees. As you have questions, Please just write them down in the chat window, and Trip and Amanda are going to pull them together, and we're going to circle back on as many of them as we can as time allows at the end of the event. Please note with your questions, if it's a specific question to one panelist or if it's just more of a general question for the entire panel. And of course, we're going to try to be mindful of everyone's time today and try to wrap up by 3:30. So finally, if you have any feedback on the event, or if you have any ideas regarding future topics for future town hall events, please send that feedback to Trip. Trip's email is trip@naec.org. And Trip, if you maybe wouldn't mind putting your email in the chat box for all of the attendees in the event that they don't have your information, I think that'd be helpful. So I'm going to start by introducing the first member of our panel, close personal friend of mine. Got to spend some time on the board together here recently, Don Gelestino. Don is recent president of NAEC, serves as the president of Champion Elevator Corp in New York City. Don has been in the elevator industry for 33 years, beginning in 1986 as a field helper for Deco Elevator in Brooklyn. Don started Wurtec Elevator Company, Incorporated in 1993, and sold the company in 2010 to United Technologies, where he was employed by one of their entities for 3 more years. Don later returned to managing his own elevator service business when he opened Champion Elevator Corp. And Don, thanks for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. I'd like to thank all the other panelists, obviously the NAEC for putting this together, and so far the 107 people attending. This is how we learn things and expand our careers and grow our businesses. So with that said, I put together a small PowerPoint presentation on basically, hold on one second, I'll share my screen. Hold on. It's going to share my screen right now. Hold on. Can everyone see that? Okay. So I made a PowerPoint on growing your company. That was my experience that John had shared with everybody. 35 years in the business, owned a few companies, bought a few companies, sold a few companies, and have that kind of career. So what I put together here, this presentation is designed to give an elevator service company owner just some thoughts on how to scale their company to their own expectations. Everyone's going to have a different expectation. I have great friends, so, father, couple of sons, 3-4 mechanics, content, happy. They know their sweet spot. That's where they want to be. And then you have, every other range that you could go with, up to kind of what we see, AEG doing, where you're able to really move the needle and grow your business substantially through private equity. So there's a lot of ways to do this and grow your companies. This is a quick presentation, but at the spring conference, I'll be doing an enhanced version that'll give a lot more details. This is kind of like the really condensed version from my perspective. So in the past 5 years, Champion Elevator went from 1 elevator up to 2,400 elevators. There was 1 acquisition just a few months back, and that brought in like 600 elevators. So it's pretty much organically that we grew that big. And we currently have 216 employees in just 5 years, which sounds pretty big. And one of the jobs that we were awarded, probably after being in business only 3 years, was a $40 million modernization of 180 elevators, big giant project. So the question that everyone says is how and why. Like, why would somebody want to have 200 employees? Why would you want to have a $40 million job? You know, why would you want to be 2,500 elevators, you know? And the answer to all of those questions basically are right here. Personally, as an owner or a group or partners, you have to have a few real kind of wants and knows. First thing you need to know is your threshold and bandwidth, as well as that of your team. Your geographic footprint. Do you want to stay within, you know, one town? Do you want to go out to 25 states or bigger? Do you have a niche market? You know, some people, wheelchair lifts and handicap lifts, that's their sweet spot. Other people, if you were a high-rise mechanic and you set it forth and went out on your own, you're going to go after the high-rise market. You have to really pinpoint where you want to be. Make sure your team is in the same space. Then you got to set your goals. You know, hey, how long do I want to do this? Like, you know, if you're going to build a plan, you have to set parameters, you have to set goals, you have to set deadlines. The reality is, when I started this company, Champion Elevator, I know the day that I want to be done. I knew at 25 years old, pretty much the day I want to be retired. And you kind of have to work your plan into all of these types of things, or else you lose perspective, you could lose tracking, and you could really just not do what you originally intended to do for yourself. And then you have to obviously know, can you afford to grow, and how do you obtain this money to grow? So, a quickie. What do these symbols bring to mind? If you said Bruce Lee, karate, good and evil, as well as Mercedes, you're right, but not for this presentation. These symbols, to me, they give me just a few tiny little pieces of what it takes from my perspective. The things you need, I believe, are the culture and the people and the money. And then what you have to do, you have to perform whatever you're doing, selling parts, building elevators, doing service. You have to perform. You have to set goals with timelines. If you don't, things just get very, you know, very loosey-goosey. And then you have to have honest communication, not only with your staff, with your employees, with your vendors, with your customers, and honest communication with your family and yourself in order to make this happen. And how did we do it? The first thing we did, first focus, first day, Vice President of my company, Joe Corrado, I heard him say 1,000 times, teamwork makes the dream work. And the reality is, you have to build a culture, you have to build the people, and they all have to be aligned. You have to know your threshold and bandwidth, as well as that of your team. What capacity and responsibilities do you want to manage? You know, not everybody doesn't have, you know, the same level of tolerance. How much time do you want to manage things? How much can you afford to manage? And at what cost to the balance of your personal life do you want to manage your business? Some people work 140 hours a week. Other people want to work 6 hours a day. And you could be successful doing both if that's what you want to do and that's your bandwidth. But remember one thing, you're not doing it alone, and you have to have the same question, and your teammates need to be aligned with that. Because if you're working 150 hours a week and you got the greatest service manager or parts salesman at the counter and they want to only work 6, even though they're the greatest, they might not be aligned with your plan, and it could just make for a tough time for both of you. First step is to create a business plan. you could do this if you were one person. I've helped people start up little startup companies. One person, kid out of high school wants to start a company, or you could do it with a big team. Big companies probably already have this and are doing this, but there's a lot of companies out there right now. They're kind of running without a plan. When I first started my company back in 1993, I ran without a financial plan. Didn't even think about it. We didn't even know. When the accountant told us we made money, we made money. If we didn't make money, we were like, well, why didn't we make money? I don't know. It was crazy, but there's a lot of companies that run like that. Not to say it's not good. Sometimes not knowing's a lot less stress. But the reality is, I believe if you're going to do it and you're going long term, you have to build a plan. And it should look a little bit like this. You want to break down your businesses in a few different ways, especially if you're an elevator service provider. You should start breaking your stuff out by maintenance, modernization, repair. You want to, because later on in life, as you get down the road, you're going to want to know how these segments perform individually. If you start lumping it all together, it's good, it's fine, but I'm telling you, the more successful you'll become, the more you're going to want granular stuff. You're better off starting it out of the box that way, and make sure you got all your costs in there correctly GL coded, and it'll help you out a lot in the long run. And the one thing I say about people, first and foremost, honest people, because if they're having a problem, they're going to honestly tell you. And if their heart's in the right place, things will work out. Good communication is key. You got to talk to your customers. You got to talk to your people. A lot of times it's bad news. That's our nature of our business. You're not calling people every day to tell them their elevator is running great and they haven't called in a month. We're all reacting to, problems that happen immediately. And you have to have the capability of adapting to change. Without that, I think, everyone's going to stay in the hamster wheel, and, you're not going to grow. You'll build a plan. If you don't adapt to change, it's going to be very hard to make your plan because everything else changes. And then the biggest thing I suggest is don't surround yourself with people that tell you what you want to hear and agree with you. Even though we all have our passion, have our vision, have our skill set, sometimes you need that outside, outside person, great sounding board, listen to your employees, listen to people. If everybody, or I don't know if anyone notices, the guy on the left there, Lee Iacocca, super successful guy. But the one time that he had a real big bad downfall was when he had surrounded himself, his top leadership was telling him, yeah, Lee, yeah. If he said, we're all going to go jump off this bridge, they'd say, yeah. And he'd jump off the bridge. So you want some constructive criticism, you want some feedback. All right, so now that you heard some of what you know, the question is, how do you achieve an accelerated growth? So again, from my perspective, I'm a big believer in if you're doing stuff and you're passionate and you're truly doing what you love and you're doing the right thing, I think the first and foremost thing is you got to let people know about it. And it's not just the customers. You want to let employees know. As things are happening, you want to promote it. You're busy, you're working, you have set up a company to do something. And it's almost like if you were a musician and you sat in the woods and wrote the most beautiful song and played it and no one heard it, did it ever really happen type stuff. So everything that you do is something that you can promote and you could tell other people about. And I suggest doing that. Websites, blogs, podcasts. And the reason why is nowadays, we used to go to the phone book back in the 80s or something, right? Now people are Googling, they're looking things up. They will bump into these type of things related to your companies. And the more that you have out there, the more interest you'll get, and you'll have a organic placement on the web, and you'll also be able to, you know, show people that you're really in the game, that you really know your stuff. If you're writing blogs about elevator maintenance or humidity in pits or temperatures in motor rooms, all these little things, you know, if a building manager is looking for you, they may say, wow, look at this. That's something, I learned something. I can't keep my motor room, you know, 150 degrees. So every little bit helps. If you're not a professional and you hate the internet, which believe me, I have a lot of older friends that do not like, even they don't even know how to type their own name on the keyboard. It's hysterical. If you're not into that stuff, I recommend that you hire somebody that is an expert. The money, I believe, will be well spent. And it's a fun thing for you to watch your company's placement. The other thing skip the slide. One thing I want to say to everyone, the other thing, believe it or not, when you think of an elevator company doing posts, I think on the planet, that might be one of the most boring things ever, right? If you have big painted machines and clean motor rooms, to a lot of people, they don't get it, you know? But the employees, when you're sharing things like the charity work that you do, the trade shows that you attend, believe it or not, I took these pictures specifically. Those are all from previous posts that we have. And believe it or not, the baby in the middle got the most feedback, the most hits on our web, the most LinkedIn, the most Facebook, everything. And that was like terrific. I mean, the company felt great when we had the baby there. The company felt great getting this picture. And funny enough, we posted it out there. We got amazing feedback. So don't just think if you're going to post elevator stuff because the elevator guys want to see it. Mix your culture in there. It'll make a big difference. And then another recommendation I have highly to get your company out there is industry committees, boards. There's a lot of great committees that need a lot of help. And by joining them, I will say that your personal growth is always accelerated. You learn stuff, you meet great people, you learn new ideas. It's very well spent time. I highly recommend that. And obviously, you're in the elevator business, so you're dealing with buildings. Another good way to grow your business is join the local organizations. Join the big ones like BOMA, there's IFMA, IROM. There's so many right in your backyard. Even the local Chamber of Commerce, believe it or not, in your town could actually connect you with some elevators. So not a bad thing to join industry-related and facility-related organizations. Facility and property managers, what we do things, new product came out. New York had this door lock monitoring code. What do? We put together a PowerPoint presentation. We called up managers. We said, hey, what day of the week are you having your managers meeting? Oh, we have 25 people come in on a Thursday. We say, great. We're going to cater the lunch. We go in and we will teach you about the new code. People at that point, the management companies didn't even know about the code. This was way back. So the more you're involved with the industry, the more things you'll know sooner, and you can be the first people on the scene helping and teaching other people. And when you go into 15, 20 managers and you educate them, trust me, it comes back to you. Another big, super, super, super important thing. I am a real believer in do good and be good. Not like a Yogi Gagudi guy. If you guys see me in a Speedo, you would definitely know I'm not one of them yoga guys. But the reality is, you have to be honest, do the right thing, march to the beat of the straight path and drum. We're very charity driven. We donate to a lot of great causes. I try to treat people better than myself. And I believe when you do that, even though we're all in a tough business, good things happen. And of course, the worst piece that I hate talking about ever, money, 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 right? Every part of what I just said costs money, even a blog. So my belief is you have to invest in your company. I will say that a lot of stuff that you're going to do or want to do, you cannot, it's not a dollar value. You're always going to be arguing with the accounting side of the house or your accountants. They're not going to understand a lot of it. Marketing, branding, advertising, donations, sometimes even research and development are things that you can't put a monetary value on. So how much did that ad, how much business did that ad bring? You don't know, but how many people did see that ad and maybe are going to Google you or bring you to, call you or tell their assistant, hey, call that elevator company. So I'm a believer in those things you have to do. It's for potential customers. It's for existing customers. When they see it, they're like, hey, that's my elevator person. Employees, when they see your advertising and doing things, they feel part of something. It's a big culture thing to be out there and doing it. And finance, how do you finance? Listen, the most important thing I believe is know your overhead and make sure that in your prices you have the correct overhead. Then you get your jobs priced up profitably and build your cash. The low risk cash to get is SBA and financing from banks. Very easily attainable if you keep your records pretty good. Medium risk, you got capital against receivables, joint ventures and partnerships are good. Private equity is in the space right now and alive and kicking, so you could grow through private equity. And then what I call high risk is just ask my wife for the money. That one never works out. So that's kind of my perspective on this. Again, at the spring conference, I'll be doing a little bit bigger version with a little more detailed items that could help everybody out, and maybe help another couple elevator guys, get to where they want to be. So with that said, I just want to say I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at the spring conference and at Atlantic City. And that's really it. Thank you very much for your time. And I thank the other panelists for doing everything that we're doing here. So Trip, you could take me off a screen share and I'm good.
So I'm gonna ask you a quick question, Don, if you don't mind, while Trip is setting that up. So going back to the beginning of your presentation, talking about knowing your why and your how, and I guess also be thought of as core values or things of that nature. So when you're trying to grow your business and you're trying to stay within some of those boundaries that you've established for yourself, whether it's geographical footprint, how do you say no? Because that's something that happens, I think, to a lot of us, right? We get an opportunity that is just not in alignment, and it's challenging sometimes to say no. So do you have a decision-making process that you go through, or is it as simple as, if it doesn't align, I pass? Or maybe just talk to us about that for a second, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so again, that's a little bit of the adaptation type situation. So, like geographically, when we first started, we started in New York and we were not going in anywhere past the river. So if you know New York, no New Jersey, no Connecticut, no Pennsylvania, we are staying in the city. Once we built up enough technicians and you got to be very cautious. The problem people do, and I got the itch just like everyone else, trust me, somebody wants, you see a job, we want it, right? You want everything. But the reality is sometimes you just have to look at it and say, all right, I'm going to push that off until I have enough staff to know that we got enough people to cover it. And, listen, it's even like the type of equipment, like if you're going to take a piece of equipment that only one person in the company can fix, you kind of taking a risk, because what if that person's on vacation? You're going to let the customer wait a week till the person's back? So we even stayed away from a whole certain types of equipment until we had 4 or 5 people and we knew we could cover it. Even if we had to, ship them a little far and stuff, we can cover it. So I think you got to really take a deep breath, and you got to relax a little sometimes, and then go for it when you know you're ready, because you kind of could, your reputation is everything. And the reality is, you could take the wrong job, or you could take that job too far, and then, the customer is not happy, and that customer is going to try 20 other elevator companies after you before they call you back. And that's, I fear that more than I fear not being able to grow to the size I got per my plan and my ideas. So, I'll take it a little slow.
All right, Donald, thanks. I appreciate you, sharing those experiences with us. And we're going to transfer over to our next panelist. I would now like to introduce Sanjay Kamani. Sanjay is an entrepreneur and an elevator consultant, assisting property owners with a variety of elevator projects. He's currently the president and COO of KP Property Advisors, LLC. And his background blends product management, manufacturing, engineering, technology development, and business operations experience. Sanjay brings a unique blend of strong leadership skills, proven technology expertise, and 30 years of technical elevator industry know-how. So Sanjay, thank you for being here, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, John. Let me start by saying thank you, Don, by the way. That was very interesting, very, very relevant in today's North America industry, where all these companies are becoming parts of what I call regional private equity groups, and/or there's just this increased amount of focus around growth and service delivery. So I want to just start by saying I'm an engineer by trade. I started as an electrical engineer. Been in the industry since 1989. That was my first job out of school. Started consulting in 2004, probably the first time an engineer like myself actually got to see some real stuff. But I've been consulting since, and my firm is now part of the ATIS family. So we are part of ATIS Inspections. As you all know, they have a national footprint. Just want to start by talking about products. So I'm going to take a slightly different focus. Don's talking about what I call the company level growth vision. I'm going to drop it down to sort of what we do when we build a new product or new service that we want to offer to our clients that we understand or have worked with or are seeking to understand. So I'm going to start with this. Let me just share my screen here. 1 second. We want to share this. Share. And here we go. So I'm going to start with this sort of famous pictorial where, we go out and think this is what the customer wants. This is what we get back as an order. We go off and engineer it, manufacture it, build it, and install it. And the customer says, wait a minute, this isn't quite what I wanted. And this applies in our everyday walks of life. We walk out of a meeting thinking, hey, I think I know what the customer wants. And when we come back with sort of the as-built, the customer says, hey, that's all great, but you kind of missed this one feature that I really wanted. So what I'm going to talk about is, what is this unarticulated need of the customer? It's what I call, when we start a new product development, we start with a requirements definition. Here's what I want to build. So there's codes, there's safety, there's functionality. But what we want to understand is the why and not the what that compels the customer to buy A over B. Because everybody's going to bring something that is functional, that is safe, that is compliant. The key is finding that additional item that's going to pull a customer over on that product to us. So this discovery process is what allows us to fill our innovation pipeline for new products. So I'll take you through a little example here, because I kind of feel like this is a unarticulated need. We always ask customers, I'll talk about modernization because it's kind of a growing market, and it's something that there's a lot of parts to a modernization project. I'll give you an example. A mod project is always seeking a compressed timeline. Project is running late from an ownership standpoint. The ownership started the process late. The ownership had to consider other issues. Are we going to do the lobby? Are we going to renovate other parts of the building? What are our market conditions? Ooh, we need to sell the building. We need to reposition. All these things are going on in front of that mod. So here we come along and we say, oh, we need to bid the project. We need to level that bidding. I need to negotiate it and award it to a contractor, like Don's largest $40 million project. And guess what? That's where the clock starts for us. But for the owner, the clock started probably a year, 2 years in advance. More importantly, by the time we get done, a typical job, we're probably talking 6 units, 8 units, 2-year process. That's an eternity in the life cycle of a building. And what's really amazing to me is since I started 1989, our lead times to the marketplace as manufacturers, as package assemblers, was 16 to 20 weeks. Isn't that number surprisingly familiar to us? So I call this, we go to do our research, and our clients tell us, hey, I want a mod product that's great, that works really well, that does this, that can integrate all these features. We never ask them, well, how quickly do you want it? Because they will always tell you, I want it fast. So to me, that's a missing piece it's unarticulated, and it has not yet been delivered in the mod world, where I can go and say, 4 weeks, I'm ready to start. And honestly, how far different are those units from job A to job B if it's the same spec? Kind of always amazes me. So I'm going to back up here a little bit. So I'm going to leave that thought about what's an unarticulated need. The second thing that happens is we need to define the customer. Is it the builder? Is it the owner? Is it the property manager? Is it the end user? It might be all of them, but in all cases, we need to understand that offering when it comes to the perspective of who the customer is. And so I won't spend a lot of time on this, because all of us know our customer in some way, shape, or form, but always focus that articulation of why we bring the product in this light of who is the customer. And then the needs, of course, depend on whether it's new equipment, modernization, or it's an upgrade. We then have to prioritize all these needs. And what's really amazing is the unarticulated need, or the need that is very lightly spoken, often gets pushed to the bottom. I think that's how we end up in the elevator industry with a 16 to 20 week lead time on a mod product for the last 40 years. It just amazes me. But it's also interesting to remember that customers you have to connect back to those customers when you do your launch. So if you feel the most important feature that they did or did not articulate was timeline, lead time, bring it back to their mind when you launch the product. And then I'm going to talk about one more thing. Customers don't always know what they need. I'll give you an example. It's called the Ford analogy. Since we're using automobile industries as examples, if Ford had asked when they started, what do you want for travel? They would have said a faster horse. And that's where we may be when we ask our customers, what do you want in a great product from the elevator industry? So we have to take that, interpret it, and analyze it before we build products around it, because we may find that we're caught in a faster horse syndrome. I also talk about something called life cycle analysis. And I use this term, I read this in an article and I love it because it's calling chasing the value share, not just the market share. You want to chase customer experience, not just the product. The experience is extremely, extremely important. So I come back to my example is this material lead time in our industry. Why is it so long in today's faster pace where maybe we should be able to do a mod project, and Don, no disrespect, but maybe that 168 unit mod project could be done in half the time. Imagine the value that the customer gains off of that. So those are kind of things I want to talk about because I feel like there's a lot of work left in finding unarticulated needs in our industry. The second, I'm going to bring this one up. It's called the more inclusive process. Our industry is great at drawing borders on what is elevator work and what is not. But the customers are seeking companies that blur these lines. They take on the task. And I'll give you an example. Card readers, fire alarms, pits, machine room build outs, and the list goes on and on and on. And just think about that pie growing in terms of the growth that we can deliver to the industry. So I like this process. By the way, I'm not here to, obviously there's reasons why we don't do it. Maybe it's liability, maybe it's know-how, maybe it's expertise. But in all cases, the customer is typically only looking for a problem solver, not somebody that puts up hurdles for them. So I want to leave people with this idea of how to go about finding those needs. So I have this thing called the ideas. You build some ideas, you measure, you learn, and you just keep looping through those cycles till we get that mark right. Ask a lot of whys, ask your customers, ask them, would you want a company that does all of this? In fact, turnkey projects on our mods are becoming very, very common now because customers don't want to deal with the coordination. So again, I come back to this point when we talk about unarticulated needs or needs that are not well understood by our customers. The customers cannot get out of a gravitational pull of what currently exists. So we're going to have to lead them by understanding their needs through this whole, what I call process of what is their experience. It is also important for us to understand their perspective and why they're asking us certain questions when they want a new product or a new offering. Use agile technologies, which is changing this client experience faster and faster, not designing a set of specs and then 2 years later coming out with a new product, but maybe we need a more fluid process that allows us to change the needs of our change to the needs of our customers as we go through the process. And then finally, cycle times matter. And the reason cycle times matter is in today's world, if I look, I used to be able to, it took us like 9 months to build a circuit board and qualify it for production, if you will. And today, people are building circuit boards in days and weeks. And that's the change that we have to adopt into our marketplace. So I want to leave people with these thoughts that say customers can't always tell us what they want. Customers can't always articulate what they want. And we have to look at it from their perspective. So that brings me to the end of my session. Might be a little short, but I felt like this was probably the most important topic when it comes to introducing new products and new services all through our industry. I sit on the other side of the table. I sit through lots of presentations for mods, new equipment, and I always hear the same drill. It is, our product is the best, it's the fastest, it's got the biggest engineering team, it's got the largest R&D research. But maybe what's in the mind of the customer is, hey, just show me how you're going to get this done and quickly, because that's what I want to do next. I want to move to my next project in the building and just keep rolling. So thank you, everybody. If you have any
Sanjay.
No, thanks.
Yeah,
John.
yeah. I'm just going to jump in and ask you one, and you know, of course, we'll continue to save other ones towards the end of the presentation. But the concept that you were just speaking about, you know, as it relates to unarticulated, you know, needs, I think it's highly intuitive. It makes a lot of sense. So, in theory, I think it's not terribly difficult, right? But it's highly complex because there's so many different things that are going into everything that you just spoke about, so many different stakeholders. So I don't know, do you have any tools or how do you extract and identify all of those different needs that you were kind of just touching on? Because again, it can be highly complex.
Yeah, that's a great question, John. So first of all of our market research tools apply, right? So you have process mapping, you're going to do surveys or collect data. Maybe you have experience from failures, customer complaints that have come into your company, or maybe it's just a need. Maybe there's a bid that is being requested and it's something you don't presently offer in your product line range. In all of those cases, you basically have to do what I call the front end process. It's quality function deployment. It's map the process of how I'm going to deliver this product to my customer. But I would encourage, and some of my favorite tools, I have a 4-block that I love, and I'll put that up in a minute, which you take all your customer features and throw them up on a 4-block. I love the process mapping of saying, let's map the process from the time a customer says, I'm interested in a product, to the time the product installed on their site. And let's look for those opportunities in that whole process. Those are the two tools that I use a lot of. When we built a software product to do compliance in New York, and we used a lot of what I call process mapping, just flowing the process of what the customer does, what we do, what our sub-vendors do, and putting it all together and trying to give them a streamlined experience. So I'm going to throw up this, if you could just put me back on the share there. I'm going to put up a 4-block, which I call mapping. So once you've got this list of features that you're interested or you think the customer's interested in, putting them in this 4-block called the value of the need against the value of the vendor choice made by the customer. And when you start putting it into these boxes, you start to realize some things are not really a need. Some things are just expected. Those are base cases. Then there's future needs. I'm going to be building a bigger building than I have in my portfolio, and I want a taller elevator, or an unmet need like, hey, if you could deliver this thing in half the time, you become the vendor of choice. So those are the kind of things that I look for. And I don't know if that answered your question, John, but
no, it did. And I don't know. Hopefully, if you want to throw that up, maybe you have the opportunity to do now. Or
let me do that. Let me just do that. So share. Here we go. Oh, it didn't display, huh? When I put it up. Here we go. Yeah. So you take, let's say you've built this list of the customer wish list, and you throw them up, put them up in this 4-block. What you want to be doing is working as up on that map and as across right as you can which will get you to the customer's unmet needs. So in many cases, you can leapfrog your competition or a equivalent bidder, if you will, because it's not just about future needs. Sometimes that unmet need is something very present and could be far more valuable than what they might want in the future. So just want to leave you all with a thought on that.
Excellent. And thank you. We appreciate that, Sanjay.
Thanks.
While you're kind of powering down there or stopping your share, I'm just going to introduce our next panelist, which is Bill Page. Bill is the Director of Product Management for Bruno Independent Living Aids Incorporated. Bill's worked in engineering, product development, sales, marketing, and product management in the residential and accessibility industry for 34 years. 9 of those with the Cheney Company and 25 years with Bruno. So Bruno designs, manufactures, and sells accessibility products with a focus on stair lifts all over the world through dealers and distributors. And Bill has been a member of the ASME A18.1 Standards Committee for 20 years, and he's currently the chairman of NAEC's Accessibility and Residential Committee. So taking a product to the market means something unique for the accessibility and residential markets. So Bill, we're glad that you're here to share your perspective with us. Thanks for coming, and it is yours.
Thank you, John, and thank you to the NAEC staff for inviting us, and great job by Don and Sanjay, and looking forward to Steve's. So we have a little shift here now with going to manufacturers, first with an AR accessibility residential manufacturer, which is Bruno, and then Steve at the end, also from a manufacturer's point of view. So a little different perspective, but as John was saying, Bruno here based right here in Wisconsin with over 400 employees, so we're a proud USA manufacturer, but able to distribute products all over the world. And kind of going off a little bit what Sanjay was talking about, I'm going to focus a lot of my presentation on the market research that Bruno uses to determine the projects, the processes, which really have priority. So, we talk about taking product to market, but really before we even get there, there's the market research, and Bruno certainly does a lot of market research before we get into that product development. So of course, like any company, these ideas on products, they're coming in constantly. And we really have to sort through those to make sure we have the right product for ourselves, of course, but for our contractor dealer partners and for the end users. So it's really an important process before we get to product development, that we've really vetted out all of those things to make sure we're working on the right things. Everybody's got limited resources, and we have to make sure we're working on the right thing. So I'm gonna walk you through some of the things that Bruno does from a market research standpoint that helps us make our decisions to get to product and processes. So keeping in mind with the accessibility residential, obviously a little different product category. So those are the products that include the stair lifts, vertical and incline platform lifts for residential and commercial use, and of course residential elevators. And of course there's a lot of related products, but those are kind of the core products. Here at Bruno, we focus on stair lifts and vertical platform lifts. So a lot of what I'm going to be looking at and talking about is the research we've done for those types of product categories. I just have a couple slides I want to share. So we're just going to walk you through some of the sources that we typically go out to get our information from. And this obviously is a little different list than maybe some of the elevator companies, but some of it's the same. And I'll explain a little bit why each is so important. So for us, from an accessibility standpoint, we really have to have that end user's viewpoint. And Sanjay made the comment about that unmet need or the need of the customer. And that's really what we're trying to define when we actually talk to end users and we bring them in surveys, focus groups, all of those types of things, actually using equipment to see what they like and dislike. whether it's the mobility challenge, whether it's the elderly, those are our focus groups, and we have to really understand what their needs are. Certainly the second part of it, Bruno being 100% dealer contractor manufacturer, we have a big influence from our dealer contractors. A lot of what we do consistently is electronic surveys, so we can get all kinds of, hit our broader dealer base. But then what we have focus groups that we bring in that we talk to quite regularly. And we really break it down on the two sides of it, kind of the ownership sales management side where we do focus detailed groups. But then we also have to bring in the technical side as well. We have to understand that installation service side of it. So we do some deep drill into both of those areas to really try to understand what the needs are from both a product and process standpoint. Certainly the architects and builders, you get into the commercial segment of our business or the residential elevators. That's feedback, obviously, that we have to have coming in constantly, understand what their needs are, new developments, to really get that information. Some of the things that might be a little bit different here is we have to talk to funding sources. Several of the accessibility products are actually funded at a very high level. The VA being one of the primary sources, but there's a lot of local funding. And so we have to understand what their requirements are as we do product development. Certainly codes and standards are always a big part of it. We always have to keep that in the mix as we're putting together those market requirements. We always talk to our strategic vendors. They often have new technology, new processes, new trends in the industry that we can incorporate with our design. So that's an important part of our market research. OTs and PTs and therapists, they have a big influence, discharge planners, the hospital staff, they have a huge influence on the accessibility industry. So we need to understand again and make sure they understand our product. So that's some of the research we do as well. And then just kind of the general stuff, the industry reports. If we feel it's appropriate, we'll go out and we'll get some of the product reports to see what's going on in the industry. One of the big things for us is understanding the regional data. What is this product intended? Is it United States? Is it North America? Is it globally? So those are really important things for us to understand again with all of the different standards around the world in our category. And then just kind of the general public reporting. Demographics, housing trends, aging, all of those types of things that really help us put all the pieces together as we're doing our market research. So this is just an example of some of the things we look at. Now, the result of all of this as we're doing our market research really leads to what are those market requirements. I think you've heard that term before. We need to have those market requirements that clearly identify the market and how we are going to meet the market requirements are going to meet those needs. And one of the things important for our market requirements is this isn't an engineering solution, right? We're not looking at the engineering solution, it's the market requirements. So for example, is market requirements are what a weight capacity is or what the travel speed is, but we're not telling the engineers, how to design it. It's market requirements, and it's an important distinction between trying to come up with those engineering solutions. Of course, part of the market requirements needs to be financial analysis, all those things that go with it. And it really then determines if this is a project that we want to move forward on and put the resources into it. I think one of the important things too, when we talk about market requirements, it's not just about products, it's about processes. And again, I like to talk about this. It really should be used in anything you're investigating, whether it's product or processes. One example we use in our process, our ordering process we use for stair lifts. When you have a curved stair lifts, we did a bunch of market research for, if you've ever seen them, the photography system to take the measurements on staircases. And we did a lot of market research to come up with the best solution for that process. We have many dealers that implement rental and lease programs for accessibility equipment. And again, that market research is really important that they understand what those programs are going to look like. So again, going through the market research list to really get to what the market requirement documents look like. I'm going to go through just, it was suggested to me that when we get into market requirements, there's a lot of things that we miss on, right? And a lot of a lot of errors. And there was a NAEC staff that really gave me a nice quote that I think is really appropriate. And I think it really is perfect for as we do this market research. So thank you, Amanda. And I wanted to go into a process in market research that we've implemented here at Bruno. It's called market research, and I heard John say it up front, so maybe some people are familiar with this, but it's the market research, the wide lens approach. So exactly what does that mean to Bruno? It is a process to research beyond the normal items that we are accustomed to, and to find out that what could be missing that affects the launch of our products and the effectiveness of our product. We all have great ideas and we have great innovations, but have we considered all the things that impact the sales and distribution cycle? So we learned about this process from a book. It's called The Wide Lens. So I put it up there for you. And it's been really helpful, and we use it in our process as we do market research every day. So I'm going to just jump out of that and I'll talk directly to you again. So there is one story from the Wide Lens book. I think it's not elevator industry specific, but I think the story is relevant. This is right out of the book, The Wide Lens, and it's a story about Michelin Tire, talk about automotive industry again. And it was about their PAX Run Flat tire story. So some of you may have remember that back in the 1990s. So they had a great new development of these run flat tires. They did their market requirements. It was confirmed that there was a need out there. The OEMs wanted it, and they took it to market. It had a bunch of new features that other run flat tires didn't have. They started production with Mercedes in 2001, and other brands followed quickly, like Cadillac and others, as a luxury offering. Here's the beginning of the failure of this launch. Soon after launch, customers became frustrated with the lack of service centers. Michelin failed to understand that the new tires, they were not a standalone innovation. They needed to have the service station follow the innovation. The service centers couldn't afford the investment to handle these new tires. It was new technology, new training, and they just couldn't afford it. And by the way, 75%, at the time anyway, of the writing of the book, 75% of tires that are sold are service tires, not OEMs. So all of this combined, Michelin got out of the tire, this PAX tire, and completely canceled the project in 2007. So I go back to market research with a wide lens. They did all their homework, but where was the miss? They missed the channel. They didn't understand the channel, and all of that investment, they failed and they missed it. So I'm going to give you an example of a Bruno wide lens miss, which I think we all have. It was about 2005. We developed what we thought was just an innovative accessibility solution based on market research. We felt it filled an unmet need for customers with mobility challenges. We really thought we had a home run. We thought this was it, next new great product from Bruno. We had clear market requirements that met a need. Product development went smoothly with many creative engineering ideas, and we went to production. We were ready to go to launch. Here's where Bruno missed. This particular product we developed had a very high level of funding through funding agencies. We had talked to them. We knew what the requirements are. We understood the funding and everything. Where we missed it was there was an approval process to actually have the funding completed. The funding agencies liked their solution, but we were surprised when the VA didn't approve our product in the right category, and there was no funding allowed for the product. So we had a great new engineering solution. We had the customers, and without funding, the funding approval, the market potential decreased by 75%. So again, market research with a wide lens. In our case, we didn't understand the financial cycle of this solution, and we missed it. So again, there's plenty of examples on a product or a process that we've had, and the good steps in this process. When you have the good ideas and they meet all the market requirements, we just feel it's a good step. We take a step back. We try to use the wide lens to make sure there's not any new dynamic that could affect the impact of the sales and the distribution. Just one other little market research when we talk maybe something that's a little, brighter light. Our core product is the stair lifts, mostly residential projects. So we do a lot of market research, a lot of it based on consumers, dealer contractors, the funding sources, codes. We use all those tools. When we do our research, all these items, there's some items that are just assumed, right? Similar to what Sanjay was saying about that one quadrant. You're doing a stair lift, you got to get a customer up and down the stairs safely, and you got to use the code as your guide for design and installation. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But what can we do to set ourselves apart? So through our research, it was important to understand the difference between the end user and the dealer contractors, along with all the other research that we did. But for the end users, we assumed the end user that it would be a complete price-driven product. And it isn't, it hasn't been. The information shows us that that other things rank much higher. And it is the usability, the safety, the space claim on the staircase. Those all consistently rank higher than things like aesthetics and warranty and price. And for the dealers, it's a different list. It's things that are more important to them. But the important thing is we take all that information, we put priorities on it, and we create market requirements, those market requirements that result in what is the best-selling stair lift in North America, to take all that different pieces of information. So again, just in summary, for any new product or process launch, whether you're a manufacturer contractor, you need to do your market research and create real market requirements that meet a need. After you have a solution, a new product or a new process, you should step back and look at it with a wide lens to make sure there's nothing you didn't miss. And then you can assign those resources and put the time into it to make it, to take it to market. So thank you for your time, and I will hand it back over to John.
Thanks, Bill. Before I let you go, thank you for sharing your experience there. It is oftentimes that we learn the most when things don't go well, and when we can learn from each other and through each other's experiences, that's to the benefit of us all. But I want to go back to the beginning of your presentation. I think it was your first slide, and you listed approximately a dozen or so different, market resource channels that you guys use to kind of pull your information together. Is there any one of those specifically that you tend to rely on more than others? Is one more successful and an accurate source of information? And if so, maybe why?
Yeah, I think the easier answer is the dealer contractors, again, because that's how Bruno does business. That's our customers, right? We sell 100% around the world through dealers and contractors. So that is the easy answer. But that by itself doesn't give us the full answer. We certainly need all that information. I'll steal a term from one of my product managers here, and it's about triangulating the information, right? So it's about getting that feedback from the dealers, contractors, understanding the end user consumer's viewpoint, funding sources, making sure you're not missing something there. It can be therapists. So we always talk about at least 3 sources of information to make sure we have the right market requirements. So I think the easy answer for Bruno is our dealer contractors, but it's all that information that we really need to bring together.
Great. Well, thanks for that. That was really good, perspective, and I'm glad you were here to share it with us. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I'm going to switch over to our final panelist for the day. A name that most of us are familiar with in the industry. He's been actively involved in the association for many years. And, for me personally, Steve is one of those individuals that reached out and helped me early on in my career. And I'll be forever grateful for, some of that guidance and wisdom that you shared with me, Steve. So Steve Wurth, the CEO and president, as well as founder of Wurtec Incorporated, business now in its 36th year. He started his career in the elevator business with Houghton Elevator in Toledo, Ohio, as an industrial engineer. In 1985, Steve took the plunge and started Wurtec as a provider of installation tools to the elevator industry. Steve's expertise has resulted in the development of many products and 12 patents. And over the years, Wurtec has dramatically broadened their product offering from tools to emergency communication equipment to residential elevators, and now a full commercial elevator controller, along with many other products. And developing products and properly marketing them is key to Wurtec's success. So we're very pleased that you agreed to share your time with us today. And welcome, Steve.
Thank you, John, and thank you to the fellow panelists. You guys did a great job. It's an honor to be here with everybody. So what I want to talk about today is obviously marketing. That's what we're here to talk about. I want to ask all of you. First of all, many of you understand who Wurtec is, and Wurtec is can be kind of a complicated little company. But for today's presentation, I want you to accept that marketing there's not a one size fits all for marketing. Marketing is a tool that you use to achieve the goals and your aspirations that you want to achieve. So for this presentation, view it through the lens of Wurtec being a developer of tools and products for the passenger elevator industry. And when you view it that way at Wurtec, we say marketing is really pretty easy. There's really three components to successful marketing. You have to have the right product, you have to sell it to a customer that needs your product, and they have to know that it's available from you. And when you have those three components, I like to call it marketing magic. And so it's really sounds simple at face value, but it's not always so easy to achieve. A simple analogy would be, imagine yourself for a moment, you're sitting at a baseball game, and it's 95 degrees out, and you got water sweat dripping down the back of your neck, and all of a sudden somebody walks down the aisle and says, "Cold beer here." And so all of a sudden, all the components of marketing magic have been met, right? You're thirsty, you want something to drink, the beer is available, happens to be your flavor, you like it, and you suddenly became aware that it's available. So if you can get those three components, we say you have marketing magic. So at Wurtec, we try to achieve that with everything we do when we develop products. And so, but it doesn't happen at the end. You have to go way, way, way back. You have to go to the beginning of the development cycle in order to try to make this happen. So let's do that. Let's go way, way back. And it all starts with what I call table stakes. First of all, you have to know your customers. And I don't mean just know who they are, that you know where they're at, what their address is and what their email address is. You have to know them. You have to know them intently. You have to know what their needs are. You have to know what their aspirations are. You have to know what their challenges are. So really, really know your customers, number one. Number two, listen to your customers. And I mean, really listen to what they have to say. So if you understand their challenges and you listen to what they have to say, you'll find yourself all of a sudden recognizing needs that they may have. And that's one thing that Wurtec, I think we're particularly good at. So we recognize needs in the marketplace. And then when you recognize needs, you simply have to pick wisely and pick the right ones, because there's a lot of needs out there. There's people that always want something, but yet at the end of the day, per what Don said early on, you have to, at the end of the day, it takes money and you have to make money. So you have to pick wisely as far as what products you really want to accept and what products you really want to develop. So listen to your customers, know your customers, and then hear what they have to say, and then choose wisely. And once you take on a challenge to try to develop a product, then you have to really develop what Wurtec has done anyway, has developed a very concrete scope process for how we really boil down all this information, like even what Bill was talking about, marketing research and all that stuff. Wurtec calls that our scope. And so what we do is we do a deep dive into the needs of the customer. We think we know what they want. We talk to the customers, we talk to multiple customers, we talk to our salespeople, we talk to our engineers, and we actually sit down and write a very concrete scope of work for this product. And the scope defines as much as we can. We talk about what's the product weigh, what's the product capacity of the product, if it has to lift something. We talk about, does it have to be approved by A17 or B44 or EN81? Is it going to need UL approval? Is it going to need CSA approval? All those things go into our scope. And at the end of the day, we come out with a document that really, really, really well defines the product that we're attempting to develop. And only then do we turn it over to engineering. And then engineering sits down and takes a look at that. And this is what engineers like, right? They like to look at this thing and they want to fully understand the scope that they're supposed to be developing. So we turn it over to engineering, and what do? They sit down and they develop a concept, and then they design the product. And then once the product is designed, we do a design review, and then we kick it back and we ask for changes. And then ultimately we go through this cycle of rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And finally we build a prototype, and the prototype sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. And then it goes back again, rinse and repeat, until we finally develop a product that we're very happy with and we're proud of, and it meets all the conditions of the scope. So now we've gone through this entire process, and we have a product that's been developed. We're happy with the product. Engineering's released it, and we still haven't even started marketing it yet. We might have months or years in this development cycle, and we haven't even started the process of trying to market it or make money. But now we have a product that's done. So now at Wurtec, what we do is then we create spec sheets. So a spec sheet for us is just the technical aspirations or specs of the product. You know, is it yield approved? What's the voltage? What's the amperage? What's the lift capacity? You know, what's it weigh? All those different things. So we develop a spec sheet, and then from the spec sheet, we develop a sales flyer. And the sales flyer lists a lot of the specifications of the product, but it also lists why you want to use it and how you might use it. So it's specs plus features and benefits. And then if necessary, we create an installation manual. So we explain to our customers how to properly and safely use the product. And then finally, we establish a sell price. And the sell price is, there's no magic in establishing the sell price. It has to be a price that the market will bear, that the market understands. They have to look at it, and it has to match the value proposition. So we establish a sell price. And sometimes this is difficult because we don't really know. Wurtec develops a lot of new products for the industry, products that have never existed before. So when we do that, we don't know if we're going to sell 100 of them or 50 of them or 5 of them or maybe 1,000 of them. So it's sometimes hard to form a direct correlation between our true manufacturing costs and what we should sell it for. So we just have to establish a sell price, which we do. So then once we have the sell price established, then for us, it gets plugged into our ERP system, which means it sets things like what's your minimum order quantity, your minimum amount of on hand. We do that for every one of our branches, and we now have branches, 2 branches in Canada and 4 locations in the United States. So we have to establish all that in our ERP system. And then finally, when all that's done, we can actually start thinking about transitioning into the more traditional marketing phase of what we do. So the product's been designed, all the groundwork's been laid, the criteria's been established in our system, all the information we need to actively market it has been established and produced, and now we're ready to start marketing. And I simply want to talk about some of the avenues that we then use as we market our products. So we use YouTube videos. We obviously have a website, and our entire catalog's on our website, and you can actually order online. We do full page advertisements in Elevator World multiple times a year. We do banner advertisements on Elenet. We do co-marketing with any distributors we might have. We make sales calls in person. We do e-blasts once a month, introducing our customers to new products. We still send out physical catalogs. And why do we do all this? We do all this to satisfy that third component I was talking about early on when we get marketing magic. And that's to make sure that the customers know we have the product. And so it's clearly, if you have the best product and it aligns perfectly with your customers, they still can't buy it unless they know you have it. So that step is all about trying to communicate to the customers that we have the product. And then finally, Wurtec believes in kind of the more institutional advertising component of what we do, the more networking piece of becoming a member of the elevator community. And in that vein, Wurtec supports our trade shows. So on a regular basis, we do the NAEC convention coming up here in, I think, September. We participate in NAEC committees. We will be at NAEC Spring Conference here in Arizona. Wurtec goes to the Interlift Convention in Augsburg, Germany, which occurs every other year. And then in the off years, we go to World Elevator Expo in Shanghai, China. We've also exhibited in trade shows, or I'm sorry, conventions in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And so why do we do this? We do this, again, to get our name out there, to be part of the elevator community. It's kind of institutional advertising, if you will. We want people to think of Wurtec when they have a need. And then one of the final steps that we do, now that we hopefully have a good product, it aligns with the needs of the customer. They know we have it. And now for us, the final step is to make it as easy as we possibly can for them to obtain it. And so in order to do that, we have multiple branch locations around the US and Canada, because we want to make it easy to get them. We don't want to have them come across borders. We want to make it easy for them to have access to our products. We created a website that you can order on. So if it's 10 o'clock at night, 4 o'clock in the morning, if you have a need, you can go on, you can look for our products. You can read instructions about our products. You can order our products. So we have a website that's there for you 24 hours a day. We think we have world-class customer service. If you want to talk to a person, you can call our office. You can talk to somebody that should be knowledgeable about the product. And then we offer what we believe is world-class after-sales support. And we think that all of that creates a nice, pretty loop from beginning stage to end stage, making the job easy, making the process readily available, designing good products to satisfy the needs of the customer. And at the end of the day, that's been part of Wurtec's success, is that alignment of all those needs and consistently doing it over and over and over again in a consistent basis and making it available to our customers. So that's our approach. It's no guarantee it will work for you, but it works for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. As you mentioned, you've introduced a lot of new products and innovation around the product lines. And so you've must have had various experiences and responses from all of those different launches. When you try to connect with customers and others about these offerings and all of the different types of marketing that you do, I mean, which would you say is the most effective?
Great question, John. And I think that I would have to answer that. I'll go back to what I said very, very early in my presentation. You have to know your customer. And so I will tell you that when we develop products, if we're developing a product that we think is going to be appealing to an elevator mechanic, we will market it differently than if we have a product that we think is appealing to maybe an OEM at the factory level. And so it goes back to that very early part of the presentation, know your customer. So there is no one size fits all on this. So for Wurtec, we take a look at the individual product that we are developing or have developed. And then we really create a marketing plan for that individual product. So we know from experience that YouTube videos and LinkedIn seems to get more traffic from a lot of the elevator mechanics. And so if we think we have a product that might be appealing to them and we want to create what we call grassroots, kind of a need for the product, then you'll see us put it out on LinkedIn or on YouTube videos. And then in many cases, if the elevator mechanic is exposed to it and likes the product, you know, then he'll go talk to his supervisor, his boss, and ask if he can buy one. So that works for us. But it doesn't work for all products. There's other products we develop, like obviously this new elevator controller that we've come out with. You know, that's not something we would market directly to an elevator mechanic. That's a totally different marketing approach that we have to take with a product like that. And so we have to match that approach to the product. Does that answer your question?
It does. It's an interesting perspective, and thanks for that. And you know, certainly appreciate how specifically your experiences, you know, are applying to the topic that we've been exploring today. So thank you. I appreciate that. And Trip, I'm going to ask you to jump in. We're going to get into the Q&A session. I know we are running short on time. I've seen some questions that have been coming in directly to the panelists, and I think the panelists have been just reaching back out to those individuals as they come in. But Trip, I'll let you jump in here.
Yeah,
if anything came through.
We sure did. We've got one for Steve while Steve's still queued up. We've got a question that says, how do you determine sales projections and year after year growth potential when it's a totally new product?
Yeah, that's real difficult. You know what a WAG is? I mean, that's the best way to answer that question. But I will tell you that, you know, years and years and years of experience in the industry, and it's not just me, don't get me wrong, but the team has we're plugged into it. We talk to a lot of our customers, as many will talk to us. It goes back to what Bill said a little bit on his marketing research piece. It doesn't just come out of the air. We don't throw darts at a board. It's an educated guess. And my team would probably, their eyes are probably rolling right now because, you know, I challenge them to be right more than they're wrong, but we're not always right. You know, we've developed products before that I've been wildly excited about and they fall flat. So, but you know, it's kind of like baseball. If we, you know, if we can have a, you know, if we can bat 600, we're doing pretty darn well. And so, we found with a really good scope, really talking to our customers, doing as much market research as we can, understanding the needs of our customer. When you put all those components together, it makes you better at guessing. But at the end of the day, it's still kind of a guess at how successful the product's going to be. Once it's rolled out and you start getting experience with it, then you know your confidence in your guesses go way up. But on a brand new product, it's tough.
So Trip, I don't know if we have any more, or it looks like a lot of the other questions have been answered directly from the panelists. Looks like we only have about 3 or 4 minutes left, and I know we want to try to end this on time. Do you have something else available, or should we?
I do. I have one other question. It's from Ronaldo Bandiero. And it's specifically for Dawn. Something in your presentation cued the question of how do you position yourself for the potential customer when your rival is a really big company?
Yeah, that's obviously a big challenge, especially in the New York, like those Class A type buildings. And, you know, one of the toughest conversations I ever had with a manager was when I went in, and, you know, when you're going into that kind of market, you know, you got to make sure you got your big boy pants on. So the owner said to me, he goes, "You guys look great. You have the connections. We know you, you got references. But the reality is, if I hire one of these OEMs and something goes wrong, everyone I have to answer to will say, well, he hired the biggest, he hired this monster, versus if they hired me, even though I have references and I'm a small guy, there could be a lot of ambiguity around it. Like, you know, you should have went with the big guy, or, you know, they didn't have that service provided or something. So the best thing that we use all the time is our existing references. And to Steve's point and Bill's point, and even Sanjay, the reality is, if you're doing a good job, you have to be in communication with your customers. You want them, like, you know, do surveys for your customers, get feedback from your customers, and you'll know where you're missing and where you're hitting. And all of those ones that come back with a positive survey, you know, the next question is, well, can I use you for a reference? And if they say yes, and they're extending that courtesy, that's our biggest way to do it. We will show those customers that say, why should I, you know, go with, you know, a champion versus a big OEM? And I say, well, you know, these 8 buildings around you are using us, and they're the same caliber building, you know, and, you know, you got to just say a few Hail Marys and, you know, hope that they say, you know what, I'm not going to go with the, you know, the big guy, and, you know, I'll go with the, you know, an independent. And the reality is, me, my staff, my team, we have our phones on 24 hours a day. To me, I see a phone ring at 11:30 at night. I feel like if it's one of my customers and there's some reason they're calling me, I'm going to answer it. And it may be a silly thing, and that's even funnier. It's like, all right, so what did that take? 5 minutes? Okay. But references are key.
Thank you for that, Don. And I've got 3:29, so I think out of respect for everybody's time and to try to end on time, this is going to bring to conclusion, you know, this town hall event. Want to thank Trip and Amanda for their help in putting this together, and of course our panelists. So thank you all for your time. especially appreciate the time that you guys put into putting your talk and your presentations together and sharing your time and expertise with us. And again, we'll be holding more town hall events like this one later in 2020. So look for those announcements coming soon. And again, let us know any impressions or feedback that you may have had for today's events, or any ideas for topics on future events. Again, you can send that over to trip@naec.org. And with that, thank you for everyone who joined us today, and take care.